Hello and welcome to the Rank and Flank podcast. My name is Finton, and these are my co-hosts, AJ and Tim.
Hello.
Evening.
Given this is our first episode of this podcast, we're going to start off with some introductions. Could one of you start us off?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'm AJ. I started playing Warhammer in, I think, 1990. So I am an old fart. I started with Advanced Hero Quest, which I played the Wood Elf character and immediately kind of got hooked on Wood Elves and Skaven. And so a few years after that, I ended up working for Games Workshop in the store in Belfast for a couple of years, where I bought way too many toy soldiers. And then I took a break for a while to, travel the world and have children, stuff like that, and got back into Warhammer just as 8th edition had come out, not long after 8th edition had come out. And I played that right the way through until the end times. And then the end times kind of killed my enthusiasm for the hobby. But with the rebirth of the old world, all of that enthusiasm is coming right back. And during 8th edition, I co-hosted another podcast, which was called Dimensional Cascade, which was mostly focused on the Pacific Northwest area of the United States, because that's where I was living at the time. And so I was very excited to be doing a podcast based around Ireland, which is where I'm living now. That's me. There we go. 60 seconds. Done.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Tim, you want to go next?
Right. My name's Tim, and I'm a Warhammer-holic. It's been over...
Hi, Tim.
It's been over 20 years since my last game.
Nobody believes you.
Of Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay.
Right.
20 years since my last beer. Ignore the wine.
Pretty well, since there's now about 50 games with Warhammer in the title, I think it's worthwhile qualifying what exactly you mean, for what it's worth. So like a lot of people, I got into fantasy model gaming with games like Hero Quest, Advanced Hero Quest. I got into 40k with Rogue Trader. My first Warhammer experience was with the 4th edition box set, which had the High Elves and Goblins.
That was a great box set.
That was probably the best box set ever, apart from all the others that I haven't talk about.
What was that called, that box set?
It didn't have a name officially.
Right.
It was just called Warhammer, and then at some point it was called the Game of Fantasy Battles.
Right. That's right. I remember. That was the first time they did the box sets, was that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was... It followed through from games like Adeptus Titanicus and Space Marine, and Games Workshop had quite a good bit of success with actually putting everything you need into a box and then selling it to you. I was actually very interested in collecting Dark Elves at the time, and they seemed to mysteriously vanish from sales, so I ended up collecting Orcs because they were fun. I like some of the Space Hawk literature that I was reading, which involved them being really silly and hitting each other, which I think I was about 12 at the time, so that kind of appealed to a sense of
Fun,
yeah.
shenanigans.
Mindless violence.
There's probably a lot of other words I could use in that place, but fun is probably the cleanest. But yeah, and then I think I got about 1 or 2 regiments of Dark Elves and absolutely vanished. But then Orcs, they started coming out thick and fast, so you had lots of different funny goblins who would strap a set of wings to their back and then fly at the enemy and then splat in a blaze of glory. And then there was the squig riding ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing but fun and games with the orcs and goblins, that's for sure.
Yep. Then I ended up collecting high elves for some reason.
Because you wanted to win?
Actually, I won more games with my orcs.
It's the power of the War.
Pretty much, yeah. I think orcs are a lot easier as your first army. They can do what I would call boxing on the table, so they can march up, take a few punches, and then give back as good as they got.
Yeah.
Whereas elf armies can give it out, but can't always take it.
That's right. Just like elves, honestly. It's like they'll be all up in your grill, but as soon as you insult them, they're like, I don't want to play with you anymore.
Absolutely.
Knife-eared bastards.
But watch it. There's still a few spearmen left, I hasten to add. I ended up going on to harder things, shall we say, in terms of wargaming, branching out into different collections, and games that aren't exactly Games Workshop games, miniatures that aren't Citadel.
That's okay. We've all done it.
You know,
this podcast is not sponsored by Games Workshop. We're allowed to name names and talk about things. In fact, I really hope we're talking about more miniatures than just what's published by Games Workshop.
yeah. The local game shop to me actually got in a game called Raven, which I don't think anyone has ever heard of other than me.
Correct.
And it was actually put out by a group of guys who were former Games Workshop staff. The orcs were done by Kev Adams, so you know that they're good orcs.
Nice.
And at some point I ended up working at Games Workshop for some reason, and stopped playing Warhammer Fantasy around about 6th edition, which I find is quite a good edition, but my gaming group was more into 40k at the time, and not played Warhammer since. So it has been a good 20 years since my last game.
Oh, wow.
I have had a look at the old world, and the thought of putting miniatures on new bases does scare me, so I'll just have to collect another army.
Yeah.
Seems like a very reasonable thing to do, and I advise everyone to do it.
Yeah, so you were right. You are a Warhammeraholic.
Absolutely.
All right. My name is Finton. I've been playing since I was very, very young. How old was I when I first?
Maybe 8, 7?
I think it was 7.
Yeah.
AJ is my father, and he's the one who got me into the hobby. He introduced me to, I think, Advanced Hero Quest when I was very, very young.
Yep.
And then Space Hulk, and then brought me to Games Workshop stores, and I'm like, oh, I want to play this. This is cool. As I saw all the demo games on the table. So I was starting out with 8th edition fantasy, right as he was getting into that. And the army that grabbed me was the Empire. I absolutely loved the cover art of the 8th edition army book with the repeater handgunner in full plate armor, standing atop a mound of bodies.
Doesn't every 8th edition army book have somebody standing atop a mound of bodies?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's excellent marketing.
Yes. It tells exactly what you're getting into.
Yep.
And I spent most of my hobby career from that point playing in tournaments. And that's kind of colored my perception of a lot of Warhammer Fantasy. It was the tournament scene. Where I got absolutely stomped every game, but it was really fun. It was challenging at times, but it was really good fun up until 2014 when the End Times came about and ruined everything.
Yeah, I do remember like when the End Times first came about, we were pretty excited about it to the point where we literally made like sandwich boards and posters and went and stood outside our Games Workshop with signs saying the end is nigh and various other things while we were waiting for one of the books to come out. But I also remember you, I think at age 9 maybe or 10, completely tabling some folks with your army at a tournament. So, it wasn't all getting stomped on, but yes, I apologize for that. That's my bad.
That's fine. It was fun. After 8th edition died, I kind of also lost interest in the hobby for a good few years until like a couple of years ago I started getting back into 40k, and that was we had a collection of Dark Angels from various box sets, which I brought to one tournament, hated it, and didn't play it again for another couple of years. And then when 9th edition rolled around, started getting back into it, and I began collecting Imperial Guard, and kind of got me back into the hobby again. And now that Old World's coming back around, going back to the first setting where I ever was really introduced to wargaming, I'm very excited to get back into, probably not Empire this time, but the setting I enjoyed.
What's going to be your first army then?
Probably Beastmen. I'm looking into them.
So they will be part of the Empire. So I think they hang out in the Great Forest.
Down south of Ubersreich, yeah.
So.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely... given that I have a bunch of painted wood elves, I'm going to put them on the new bases and see how we go from there. But I smell a new army in the not too distant future for myself. I'm just not 100% sure what yet.
Yeah, I think myself I'll be doing a Chaos army.
Because you want to win.
No, actually, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Death Dealer, which is a portrait of a scary dark horseman by Frank Frazetta.
No, not familiar.
It is pretty much the inspiration for Chaos Warriors in general.
Oh, okay.
In fact, Thomas Piernan recently confirmed what I've been saying for ages, that he actually based Archaon
on that picture?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now I have to go and look that up.
Absolutely.
Say, what was the name of the artist again?
It's Frank Frazetta.
Okay.
He's a very influential artist, period.
Okay, cool. And the name of the picture?
Is Death Dealer.
Death Dealer, okay.
Yep, I managed to get a miniature of Death Dealer, who will be the Chaos Lord of my army.
So that's the inspiration behind
absolutely.
it? Yeah, so for me, it's most likely going to be Bretonnians. The downside of that is Bretonnians don't have any monsters in their army, and I do love me some monsters. So that's what's holding me back. Probably the reason that I'm excited about Bretonnians, aside from, loving the King Arthur mythology, is that in our Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay group that we've been playing of late, I've been playing a Bretonnian for like the last, almost a year now, I guess, and putting on a very silly fake French accent and enjoying myself immensely. So I feel like if I can, shout at people in a fake French accent on the battlefield, I'll have just as much fun.
Yeah. I mean, technically, you don't actually need an army to do that, but
need a battlefield.
Yeah, I just shout at people that fake. I would give you my fake French accent right now.
So now that introductions are out of the way, I want to go over what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this episode. So the first thing I wanted to discuss would be some differences between 8th edition and the Old World. Just how the rules have changed and what that's going to mean for the game going forward. After that, I want to give a fun demonstration of the rules, where we're going to have some named characters fight each other in a segment called The Pit. After that, we'll go into how to get started collecting a new army for this game. And then we'll wrap up from there, I think.
Sounds good.
The Art of War.
All right, so let's get started by talking about some of the different changes between 8th edition fantasy and the Old World.
Okay, so there's been quite a few bits and pieces put onto the Warhammer community site already. So I don't really kind of want to cover too much of what they've already, talked about over the last few weeks. But I'm going to call out a few things that I think are significant differences. The difficulty is, obviously the rules only dropped officially a couple days ago. We just got the PDFs of the legacy armies today. There's an awful lot to digest. And until we've really got some, toy soldiers on the table and rolled a bunch of dice, it's all kind of conjecture and theory hammer at this point. But, I played a lot of 8th edition competitively. So these are the things that are kind of standing out to me. Okay. Feel free to interrupt as I'm going and bring us in any tangent you like. And it does not have to be super rules relevant. It can just be fun and shenanigans, but otherwise I'm just going to kind of keep moving things along. Yeah. Sound good? Mm. All right. So, first thing I think that is a really beneficial change is that base sizes are now part of the model profile. So one of the biggest problems that we had where there were no official base sizes, people at tournaments would occasionally model for advantage and put like a huge model on a tiny base. I'm looking at like the 50 by 50 forest dragon, for example.
That was a thing?
Oh yeah. The forest dragon kit was a really, really old metal dragon kit that was hard to put together. It had the twins riding on the back of it. I don't know if you remember them.
Oh yeah. The Sisters of Twilight. Yeah.
Yeah. The Sisters of Twilight. And, it came with a 50 by 50 millimeter base. It was the only dragon in 8th edition that came with a 50 by 50 millimeter base. Everything else had been long upgraded to, I think they were on 100 mil by 50 mil bases, or maybe 100 by 75, some of them. Anyway, having specified base size just removes all of that. It removes a lot of the onus on tournament organizers to have to answer questions about what base size does this need to be, and well, he's cheating. Yeah. Anyway, so base sizes is the first thing. Second thing is I love that templates are in the game still. To me, the templates are A, really fun, and B, make for excellent tournament prizes. Like a lot of the tournaments that I would run or go to, instead of giving you a certificate, you would get a new template with the name of the tournament on it, or in our case, the podcast or whatever it happened to be. And because there's quite a lot of different templates that you can end up using, there's the 3-inch, the 5-inch, and the flame template. And in the old edition, there was like the fallen giant template as well. You don't really run out of need for these. You lose them, whatever. Templates are great. So the rules for the templates have changed now, and I think these are for the better to help prevent so many arguments. Now, if your model's 100% covered by the template, you're hit. But if it's only partially covered, you're only hit on a 4+. So it used to be, I even remember people publishing like pictures to show if your template hits, here, then it's this many models on 20 mil bases or this many models on 25 mil bases. I'm like, that's taking it a little bit far. It's like, so
that's taking a lot of the fun out of it at that point of templates.
Right.
Because they're meant to be wacky and random in a lot of cases, especially when combined with scatter dice.
Right.
And if you're like, oh, this hits 15 guys automatically, it's not exactly, fun. It is kind of quicker, assuming that you agree where that hits. But if you don't, then it can just lead to, judges being called. Yeah,
right. And arguments and disagreements and so forth. So the fact that it's, all of these dudes on a 4-up, it's like, okay, well, one more dude on a 4-up, nobody's going to argue about that because that's basically a roll-off anyway. So, yeah, I like that a lot.
Did they bring back the Fallen Giant and Foot of Gork templates?
No, sadly.
Terrible game. New podcast.
Fair enough.
I believe that Foot of Gork is now a 5-inch template.
That's about what it was anyway.
Yeah, and the Fallen Giant template has been replaced with a special rule called Timber, which I I don't like that rule. It says you dice off, you roll off to see who chooses which way the giant falls, or anything that has this special rule, which includes tree men, and you nominate an arc into the direction that they fall, and whoever wins the roll off, and then anything that's in that direction ends up getting hit. So it's fine. I would much prefer it to be like a scatter dice or something, a bit more silly. I mean, if you're gonna go to all the hassle of figuring out which way something falls to see who gets splatted, make it fun. I think the roll off works. It's fine.
Yeah. Whenever I'm going to be playing this, it's definitely going to be randomized whenever I win the roll-offs.
I've won the roll-off, now I'm going to scatter to see which way it goes.
Exactly.
Nice. That's classy.
So I've not read the rules, right? But being a wargamer, I'm determined to make a judgment on this. I think that if you're going to roll to see if the template doesn't hit you, it should be an initiative roll. I think as a stat line, initiative isn't used nearly enough. And I think probably by next podcast, when I've actually read the rulebook, I might be having to eat the rulebook because I've made a judgment there. But
initiative is used a bit, well, at least it's modified a bit more in this edition than it was in previous editions.
that's good.
Yeah, I think initiative actually does come into things a bit more. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it actually comes into that particular rule. I'm going to look that up and report back on it a little bit later.
Okay. Because they got rid of it from 40k, and I'm still quite annoyed about it.
They got rid of all templates from 40k.
That's true.
Yeah, but I'm not as bothered about templates as I am about initiative. Like,
Oh, sure.
Nope, they do not have initiative in that particular rule. So, yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I like initiative being in things a bit more. Okay, so the next thing up that they have added in is it's more of a refinement and clarification than anything else. We now have this concept of the formation that your unit operates in, and there are, I think, only 3 options. You have skirmishers, which we are, generally familiar with from previous editions and also from like 40k and so forth, which basically means they are not in any particular shape or orientation, but the models all have to remain within 1 inch of another model from the same unit. They have now 2 other formations: close order formation and open order formation. Now, the close order formation is what we think of when we think of the stereotypical rank and flank kind of unit, right? They're all close together. They've got their sword and their shield, and they're, relying on each other to protect each other. The open order formation is on the battlefield. It looks exactly the same, right? Still the models are ranked up in the same way, but the concept behind it is that they have a looser fighting style. And so as a result, they're more maneuverable. And I actually really like this differentiation, and that's possibly because I'm a Wood Elf player. But what it means is that, for example, your unit of archers, you'll hear me use Wood Elf examples a lot because it's certainly the army that I've read the most of so far. A unit of archers is open order, and so gets to make a pivot at the end of its movement, or as part of its movement. I think it's at the end, which makes it easy to, point at the enemy you want to shoot at. Whereas your close order unit, like your spearmen, they get an additional combat result bonus, right? So these are logical things that I think help the simulation, and also really kind of clarify the rules around how your models are supposed to be arranged and laid out.
Yeah, I think that actually does sound like a very good rule. I've had a few discussions, after game discussions, with mates back in the day about that very thing, and I think that's a good idea. It brings it in line with other war games, and pretty much ideas of the period of ancient battles, medieval battles, where how you manoeuvre your troops and what your formation is actually plays a factor in your game. I mean, you did mention that skirmishing was a thing, and that always kind of was a thing, but close order particularly is going to be very important for anyone with a phalanx, so High Elf Spearmen, Empire
Spearman.
I mean, it is your typical rank and file unit.
Yeah.
The ones that are holding objectives or forming the kind of the core of your army are typically going to be these close order units. I think what's interesting is, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. It is that if you've got a close order unit in a combat, they automatically give you a +1 toward your combat result. So that's separate from rank bonus. So I think that's a pretty neat thing. So there's reasons to have close order, reasons to have open order, and reasons to have skirmishers. And they excel at the things that they're supposed to be good at, and they, have weaknesses that balance them out.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things about skirmishers I really want to emphasize is that they don't have any facing, so they can charge in any direction.
Yeah, I do like that. But just because they can charge in any direction, you're like, surprise flank attack. They don't disrupt you if they charge you in the flank, right? So because they're not rank and file troops, they're not as
it's not a big block of guys hitting you. It's just like one guy, then another, then another.
Yes, exactly. So I'm definitely interested to try them out on the battlefield and to see what the impact is of these new rules. Okay, another thing. So we're kind of at the very high level stuff at the moment. So we'll get through that shortly, and then move on to kind of piece by piece rules. They've reintroduced the concept of unit strength. So unit strength now it's used in a bunch of places, and it's a representation of how outnumbered are you. For most models, most units, the unit strength is count up the number of models in the unit. But for things like monsters, it's how many wounds do they have? Or I think it's the starting wounds of the monster. So your 6 wound monster has a unit strength of 6, right? So won't be outnumbered by 5 dudes. I think in most cases it's about making more nuance to the psychology. I'm trying to remember a specific example, but I think there's if you are making a break test and you're more than twice outnumbered in unit strength, then there's a different effect compared to if you're more equal.
I believe fear only applies if the enemy outnumbers you.
Right, that's right. That's another one. So like I said, it's all to do with. I think it's all to do with the psychology, is the strength, the unit strength stuff. So, I think that's good. It makes sense to me. If you've got 40 goblins all in a unit, they're a lot braver than if there's only 4.
I haven't read the section on objectives or anything yet, but I'm imagining that they probably are going to use this for objective control as well.
They do.
Right.
Yep. There isn't specific rules and objectives, just to kind of jump to that. But it is more on a scenario by scenario basis. So I think they present 9 different scenarios in the rule book, and there's extra ones in the arcane journals, and they really just provide different ways to play out a battle. And yeah, if one of the objectives is that you have to, or if part of the mission is you have to hold a particular objective, then it comes down to unit strength to determine who holds it. Okay, last thing I have on kind of overall changes is they've introduced 2 new troop types, and these are again just kind of refinements and clarifications over what we had before. Now we have heavy infantry, which is somewhere in between regular infantry and monstrous infantry. So think about like your Chaos Warriors, for example, are clearly heavy infantry versus, your Glade Guard, which are regular infantry. And then your monstrous infantry are still the same. It's like your ogres and your
Minotaurs.
And your trolls and whatever else.
I think they nicked that one from Kings of War. Romantic.
With those troop types now comes the concept of your rank bonus is determined by how many troops or what your troop type is determines how big your rank has to be. And that was kind of in 8th already. Like monstrous infantry needed only 3 to have a rank, whereas all other unit types pretty much needed 5. So if you were monstrous, you needed 3. Otherwise, you needed 5. Well, now the heavy in between, and I believe there's even heavy cavalry as well, now that I think about it. So the heavy category just needs 4. So nice and easy, 3, 4, and 5, in descending order of size. It's easy enough to remember.
It'll be nice for Nurgle Warriors armies to be able to run 8 blocks of guys and have 2 ranks.
Right. Yeah. Because that's Nurgle's special number. Yeah.
I thought it was 7.
No, 7 is Tzeentch.
And who's 9?
Slaanesh. No, actually, hang on, no. 8's... No, you're right. Hang on.
8 is Khorne.
8's Khorne.
I'm entirely confused.
Yeah, I
6.
think 8's Khorne.
8's Khorne. I knew it was either Khorne or Nurgle.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is 9 Nurgle?
No.
No.
Right.
7's Nurgle, that's right.
7's Nurgle.
7's
Right,
Nurgle.
yeah, because
6 Slaanesh.
Yeah.
9 for mortal men. 3 for the elven kings.
And 1 ring to rule them all.
Pretty much.
Okay. That's Nagash, right?
But it goes 6, 7, 8, 9. Slaanesh, Nurgle, Khorne, Tzeentch. However we're pronouncing it today.
Yeah.
Tzeentch.
Well, back when we were first reading it and there was no Games Workshop in town, we had no idea how to pronounce it. And Tzeentch was absolutely a popular choice. Well, I mean, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
I hope no one was playing Chaos at the time.
Everyone was playing Chaos at the time. Do you know why?
Because they win.
They wanted to win. Exactly right.
I think it must be quite interesting for gamers who travel to find out how many variations on that particular pronunciation there is.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. I've only got a few more things to cover in terms of rules. So spells. Obviously, the magic phase has changed quite a bit, and they've kind of gone into that in the Warhammer community site. I'm not going to cover over that too much, but long and short of it is, instead of having a dice pool, you're going to get to cast each spell that you know, and you're going to chuck 2d6 at it each time. The difference that I think is worth calling out, there's 2 differences I think are worth calling out. One is that when you're doing your spell selection, it used to be if you're a level 4 wizard, you roll 4 dice, and then you pick the numbers that are of the spell from the lore that you had in accordance with the numbers that you rolled in the dice. So if you rolled a 1, 2, 5, and 6, you got spells numbers 1, 2, and 5, and 6. And you're able to throw one of those away and choose the signature spell. That hasn't changed. What's changed is what happens if you roll a double, any duplicates. It used to be that rolling a duplicate meant you got to choose the spell you wanted, which was fantastic in terms of you take a level 4 wizard in a particular lore, you were almost guaranteed to get the spell that you wanted to get from that lore. Now you have to re-roll. Now this is offset, and I don't know how much this is for all the armies, but this is offset by the fact that some wizards know specific lores that are for their particular army. And I'll use the Wood Elves again as an example. The lore of Athel Loren, right? There's only 3 spells in that lore, and it's not a complete lore that you choose from, or that you roll on just like the others. What it is when you choose the signature spell, instead of taking the signature spell from whatever lore you have, you can choose a spell from the lore of Athel Loren. So I think spell selection has changed quite a bit. And overall, the spells seem to be quite down-powered compared to last time, which, or compared to 8th edition, which I think is a good change, right? We don't have the...
No more Purple Sun deleting everyone on initiative saves.
Oh, yeah. I've been to tournaments where, literally turn 2, somebody's army is off the board, and it's just like, it's not fun. I mean, you have to laugh because otherwise you'd cry, but that doesn't mean it's actually fun. And so yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how Magic plays out as part of the game. I think we'll see probably fewer, Magic dominated lists like we might have seen in the past, but who knows? One thing that stuck out to me is that hexes and buffs, which I think there's now a special subphase for it called the Conjuration subphase, and it happens before movement. So if you want to buff your own unit or debuff your opponent's unit, your wizard has to be in place from the turn before in order to be in range in order to make that happen. And I think that is going to be a really interesting and I think, frankly, difficult part of tactics is making sure that that's going to work. Okay. I think the last thing that I really think is worth bringing up, and then I'm going to be done talking because I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice as well, is that there's now a couple of extra maneuvers that units can perform in the movement phase. So in the 8th edition, it was you could charge, you could march, you could move, or you could reform. And the move, you were allowed to do one wheel or wheel up to 90 degrees as you moved. Or I think you could wheel as much as you wanted, actually. Yes, you could wheel as much as you wanted, but your movement you were going to run out of pretty quickly. Now there's two extra maneuvers you can do. One is a turn maneuver, which basically says you're going to give up, I think, a quarter of your movement, and everybody just does a 90-degree turn. So if you've got 5 ranks wide, you're 5 wide and 3 deep. Now you're 3 wide and 5 deep and pointing to the right or pointing to the left. And I think you can give up half your move and do a full 180 and then still move, which is pretty neat. And then the other thing you can do is you can redress the ranks. And this one is really important. And I'm not going to be able to stress this enough. I think this is probably one of the biggest maneuvers we're going to see happen all the time. And I'll get to that in a bit, probably in another episode. But it's where you can give up some of your movement in order to add more ranks to your unit, to make your unit wider and bring guys from the back to make it wider, or to narrow it, bring guys from the front and make it deeper. And the reason I think this is going to be so important is because in close combat now, only the front rank gets to attack. The second rank can make a supporting attack if they happen to have a special rule that allows them to do so. Looking at like spears, for example, right? Spears give you an extra rank. But it used to be that everyone in the second rank made a supporting attack. Now it's only the front rank. So, and the other part of that is everyone in the front rank gets to attack, not just the ones in base contact. So redressing the ranks, I think, making yourself wider in order to be ready to receive a charge, stuff like that. These things are going to happen a lot. And there's special abilities that work with special rules that work with that in order to make some units more effective at being able to do it. So I expect to see the ranks getting redressed on the regular.
The Pit. The Pit. The Pit.
All right. So now that we've gone over some of the major rules changes, I think it's time that we move into the Pit, which is a section where we're going to face off a couple of special characters against each other, see how they fare, and just look into their rules a little bit.
I think it's really important to say that whoever wins gets to stay in the pit and fight again next time.
I forgot about that bit.
Yeah.
For our very first pit match, we're going to have a couple of fun characters here.
In the green corner.
Right. We're going to have the Green Knight, from the kingdoms of Bretonia.
In the red corner.
We're going to have Settra the Imperishable, the great king of Nehekara.
The Green Knight is amongst the most well-known figures of Bretonian folklore. He is a popular character in the plays and puppet shows of wandering troubadours and courtly bards alike, and everyone in the land, young or old, peasant or noble, cheers his acts of heroism with equal enthusiasm. In such performances, the Green Knight always appears bedecked in a pale green livery of intertwining vines and roots, long plumes of ivy cascading from his great helm. Yet little do many realize that these tales are bound in fact. The Green Knight is the sacred protector of Bretonia, the chosen champion of the Lady of the Lake. Many are the tales of an eerie twilight falling upon the land and a green mist rising, heralding the arrival of the Green Knight, a spectral figure with glowing eyes mounted upon a steed of shadow. Yeah, Green Knight, go! I was so excited for the Green Knight, I kicked my mic over. Okay, sorry. So I love the Green Knight. I love his fluff. I love that he's like straight out of Arthurian myth and plunked right into Warhammer. Yes, thank you. Sorry, you're going to talk about his rules now. Go ahead.
I was not. I had Settra up.
Oh, you want to talk about Settra? Okay, fine. You're going to introduce Settra?
I'd like to introduce both of them first before we move into the rules.
All right, let's do it.
All right. O mighty Settra, great king of Nehekara, the imperishable. Kemrikara, king of kings, opener of the way, wielder of the divine flame, punisher of nomads, the great unifier, commander of the golden legion, sacred of appearance, bringer of light, father of hawks, builder of cities, protector of the two worlds, keeper of the hours, chosen of Petra, high steward of the horizons, sailor of the great Vitae, sentinel of the two realms, the undisputed, begetter of the begat, scourge of the faithless, carrion feeder, first of the Charnel Valley, rider of the sacred chariot, mighty lion of the infinite desert, lord of the shifting sands, he who holds the scepter, great hawk of the heavens, waker of the higher titan, monarch of the sky, king of the shifting sands, champion of the gods, and many, many more.
Dang. Dude's got a lot of titles.
Yep. He's been alive for a few thousand years. He picks up a few.
He's an overachiever.
Should see his bar bill.
Okay, the Green Knight. So so I think it's worth noting there's a lot fewer named characters now, and they only appear in the arcane journals. And I think there's only 3 for each of the armies that have been released so far. And the Green Knight is the only one that's coming back from previous editions.
For Bretonia. For
Bretonia, yep. Okay, so and broadly speaking, he's the same in terms of what he does and how he does it. There's just a few minor differences. So we'll talk about that now. So first off, he's weapon skill 7, which is pretty awesome. He's strength toughness 4. He's got 4 wounds because now his mount kind of just adds the wounds right in there. He's initiative 6. He's got 4 attacks and leadership 9, and he costs 275 points. So he's heavy cavalry, which means his base size is 30 by 60 mil. And he's got his own special weapon called the Dolores Blade, which I'll get to in just a second. And then he's got a bunch of special rules. So he's ethereal and unbreakable and unstable, which is, he's a ghost, right? This is what he is. He's immune to psychology, which, generally things that are unbreakable are. He's a loner, which means he can't be your army general and he can't join units. And that all makes tons of sense. He can move through cover. Yep. He's a ghost. And then he's got a rallying cry. He causes terror. He's got rallying cry, and aura of the Fae, blessed night, and a few others. These are all like special rules just for him. So I'll go into some of his special rules here. Aura of the Fae is when he loses his last wound, he's removed from play, but he's not slain. He gets to come back again later. That won't come into effect in the pit. If he's removed from play, he's lost. But it's very cool in the actual game. But each time he's slain, he's weakened, and so he ends up coming back with fewer wounds, and it's harder to bring him back. So I think that's pretty cool fluff and really cool on the battlefield. It's like, oh, you've killed him? Nah, back he comes. He also has a 5-up ward save, and that's his Blessed Knight special rule. And then the Guardian of the Sacred Sites. So this is basically, you don't deploy him on the battlefield. We'll deploy him in the pit because, he's kind of got to be there. But it means that, instead of deploying him, you can attempt to awaken him. On a roll of 1 to 2, he keeps sleeping, but on a 3+ he awakens. And when he awakens, you put him inside some natural terrain feature on the battlefield. So that's any forest, any difficult or dangerous terrain, but it can't be like walls or buildings or whatever. So you have to make sure you have at least one of those on the battlefield in order to bring him on. It does mean that your opponent kind of knows where he's going to come. That's okay, I guess. His sword, the Dolorous Blade, Dolorous?
I think it's Dolorous.
Is it Dolorous?
I think so.
Okay, Dolorous. Dolor is Latin for sad, so it's the sad blade of sadness, and it gives him one of. It has 2 profiles, so you have to choose which of the 2 you're going to attack with. You can either get D6 extra attacks, which is his rapid strike profile, or you can get the deadly blows profile, which gives him strength +2, armor bane 1, and multiple wounds 2. And either way, he's got armor piercing -1. So he's pretty good. I'm very excited to roll some dice for him. All right. What about Settra, the imperishable, the one with too many names?
Right. What stands out for Settra to me is that Settra does not kneel. That's one of his special rules. This evokes a bit of General Zod.
Yes.
In fact, I could think he would offer the Green Knight a place in the New Order, second only to my own. I offer you a chance for greatness, Green Knight. Take it. So Settra does not kneel. He must always accept a challenge unless Nekath, the emissary, is engaged in the same combat, in which case Nekath, his mate, must accept the challenge on Settra's behalf.
Nice.
Which I don't see what that's got to do with kneeling, to be honest, but I think it's just really good to have that written somewhere.
It's cowardly to run away from a challenge, and Settra is no coward.
It's true.
So that would be a separate rule.
Right.
Settra is no coward. Settra always accepts challenges, but Settra does not kneel. Just probably should be written somewhere.
Yep.
His knees don't work anymore.
These old bones.
There's a lot of different people who could play Settra. Going from Terence Stamp to Old Man Steptoe.
There you go.
So Settra the Great, if your army includes Settra, he must be the army general.
Makes sense. He literally runs the Tomb Kings, right?
Yeah. He's commander of the legions. See, I'm sure they've got these special rules the wrong way round. So commander of the legions should mean that he's the general, but...
Well, one other thing to know about Settra the Great, he has to be your Hierophant, which is a thing in the Tomb Kings, who, when he dies, all of your units start crumbling. And if your Hierophant is normally the highest wizard level in your army, but Settra is only a level 1 wizard, and he must be your army's Hierophant.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, theoretically he knows the most about necromancy. He just chooses to only use one spell.
It's his favourite one that day.
So as commander of the legions, he gains the Arise special rule. And unlike other models with this special rule, may use it when he's engaged in combat.
I don't know that will apply a huge amount. I don't think you can use Arise on yourself. I believe Arise lets you bring back dead models in other units.
I will look that up while you continue to read
Well,
the
after he
rules.
killed the Green Knight, right, he drives around in this chariot, so he doesn't walk or anything. So it's a heavy chariot.
The base size of 100 mils by 150 mils, which is huge.
Huge.
Which combined with the steeds gives him a total of 8 wounds, a toughness of 5. Likewise, he's got weapon skill 7 with the Green Knight, so
They're equal weapon skill, okay.
it's only got 5 attacks. His initiative is terrible at 3, but quite good for an undead person, to be fair.
Fastest skeleton alive.
Absolutely. He's probably even got the boots of Hermes somewhere. Looking around. Comes in at 445 points.
Oof.
You can just imagine him weighing in there. And
Yeah. Weighing in at 445 points. That's quite a chunk. Like if you think about a 2,000 point army, that's like almost a quarter of your points on that dude. So you definitely do not want him to die. That is for sure.
He is imperishable. It's in his name.
Yep. It's also flammable. So no one offer him a light on anything.
It is worth noting, change from previous editions. Tomb Kings are now all flammable and have regeneration 6+ or 5+ for characters.
Okay, so with Regenerate, that means he could actually be played by the 2 actors that we mentioned earlier. Impact hits at 2d3. Must be the new chariot rule. That is...
Yep.
That's probably a better rule than the D6 plus however many scythes are literally on the model. From
Once again, modeling for advantage.
Yep.
Yeah.
47 scythes on each wheel.
You see these little spikes in this guy's shield? Those are scythes.
I think I might have done that in the past. So he's got some very interesting powers here. He's got My Will Be Done.
That's a movement or attacks buff for a unit.
Yep.
A lot of his points value is coming from his buffs that he gives out to units.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of Archon the Black, who also used to drive around in a chariot, apart from his chariot could fly.
Right.
But,
I believe Archon is banished at this point from the Kingdoms of Khemri for his worship of Nagash.
yeah, he was best mates with Nagash. He was
Yep.
his
Right-hand skeleton.
right-hand skeleton. Yeah. Yeah, he done his bidding. I think you took him if you wanted a special character, but didn't want to take Nagash. So what's interesting is his blade is blessed by the sun god. I have no idea how he can wield a blade blessed by the sun god.
Yeah. Well, he's just that hard.
I think so, yeah.
Wielder of the Blessed Blade of Petra was one of his titles.
Absolutely. So the blessed blade is flaming attacks, magical attacks, requires 2 hands.
Okay.
So he can set fire to people, which makes him pretty dangerous considering he himself is flammable.
Yeah. So in the real rules terms, flaming attacks and magical attacks means it's going to cancel out any form of regeneration. So like demons, for example, have regeneration. They have basically magical regeneration, and that gets canceled out by magical attacks. And things like skeletons and
Trolls.
Tree men and trolls all have regular regeneration, which gets cancelled out by flaming attacks. So no regen against Blessed Petra.
Also, magical attacks will cancel out ethereal, meaning Settra can actually hurt the Green Knight.
Yep.
No automatic wins for him this time. Dang. So, we've rolled off our first turn.
Settra 1.
Yes. Now, before we actually start doing anything in terms of fighting, we need to generate Settra's one and only spell. So, could you go ahead and roll that for me, Tim?
Number 2.
That is Unquiet Spirits. It is a magic missile. The target enemy unit suffers 3d6 strength 2 hits
Yeah. So
with no armor saves.
do you want to shoot at me, or do you want to take this signature spell, which you get to hit me with in close combat?
I think I'll take the signature spell.
All right, that is the Dwellers Below.
Yep.
Excellent. Now we can move on to the movement phase. Wait, no.
Yeah.
No, we've got to do the command phase.
Oh, we got to do the
Yeah.
command phase. That's right. Right. So there's this whole. Is it the command phase? Is that what it's called?
I think it's called the command phase, yeah?
Yeah, strategy phase.
Strategy phase, God.
Yeah, strategy phase. All right.
Very
so,
slightly different than 40k, just for annoying reasons. Right. So, the strategy phase, Settra has a special rule, which is My Will Be Done, where he gets to pick one of 3 effects, either to gain additional movement, additional initiative, or additional attacks. Was it attacks or weapon skill?
I think it's weapon skill.
Yep, sorry, weapon skill.
With weapon skill being equal, initiative, even though it's my favourite stat, I'm getting a premonition that movement could be very valuable.
Definitely
You want to
could
make
be.
sure to make that charge.
Yep, it was given to me by the Hawk Lord
Hmm.
who appeared and said, "Father." So I manifest the spell, "My will shall be done."
Right. So, to do that, you make a leadership test against Settra's leadership of 10.
I scored 2 4s.
So that's an 8. So you succeed. And then you get to pick your effect.
Grant me extra movement.
Forward to glory. That's the name of that rule. All right. So D3 extra movement. See what you get. 3. Oh, dang. That means you're pretty much autoing. You've got move 11 now.
I think it's capped at 10.
Is it capped at 10?
I think it might be capped at 10.
It is. It says to a maximum of 10. Okay. Phew. So there's a chance you might not make it. But
1 in
not-
36.
1 in 36 chance. Not a great chance.
All right, let's move on to the movement phase. Declare charges.
Yes.
Yeah. My will be done. Yes. All right.
Steeds, bring me forth.
As they say in Britannia, come at me, bro.
I'll take that as a hold reaction then.
I don't think he can do anything else.
No, he is unbreakable.
Yeah.
Right. In that case, go ahead and resolve the charge. Go roll your charge. 2
Double
3s.
3.
Okay. You make it in.
Ouch. So, first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to take some impact hits from that massive chariot.
Okay. The impact hits of 2d3. So 1 at 3, 1 at 2, which is a total of 5.
5 impact hits. Ouch.
So looking at the strength of the chariot itself, which is strength 5.
Yep, and I'm toughness 4.
Are the impact hits magical?
Not only is the chariot of the gods. Okay.
That says his attacks are magical.
Impact hits caused by the
Okay.
chariot of the gods have flaming and magical attack special rules.
Excellent.
In addition, I can join a unit of Tomb Guard chariots.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
You can stick the big chariot in the little chariots.
So,
That's cool.
how many was that in total?
That was 5. You might just kill him straight out here. So, strength 5, tough 4.
The Green Knight emerges from the lake.
Oh, phew, there's a pair of 1s in there, so I'm definitely going to survive the impact hits.
All right.
But
see.
otherwise, 3 wounds. Okay, so I have heavy armor and a shield.
Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
There is a special rule
Yeah.
for Tomb Kings. Grind them down.
Oh, no.
Whilst within the general's command range, friendly models whose troop type is chariot may re-roll the dice when rolling to determine the number of impact hits they cause.
Oh, gross. Okay.
So you had 5. Do you want to re-roll?
Oh, he got 4. He got another impact hit.
6 and a
Okay.
1.
4 impact hits. Ouch.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's the armor piercing on the impact hits?
That is a great question.
Um,
We should just pull up the rules for impact hits.
Is there nothing on the profile itself?
on the profile itself, it just has
Nope.
D3 at strength.
It's underneath the universal special rules, I think.
Okay, then let's take a quick look there.
I'll put money on it that it's -2,
You think so?
probably. Only because that's how it used to work.
Nope, there's no resolve impact hits.
Using the unmodified strength characteristic of the model.
Yep, and they always strike at initiative 10. So no, it's just straight up strength. So I get my full armor save,
Yeah,
right?
think so.
Does appear to be, as we try to work out the rules as we go here. Okay, so 4 wounds, and I've got heavy armor, which gives me a 5 up, plus a shield, which gives me a 6 up. A 4 up, plus barding on my steed, which brings me down to a 3 up. So I've got a 3 up armor save. All right, so here we go. I've got 4.
You need to roll to wound first.
Those are as rolls to wound.
Was it? I thought those were rolls to hit.
No, impact hits hit automatically.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why they're called impact hits.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so 4 saves. I need to make at least one of these. 3+. Okay, I save 3 of them. Okay, so I take 1 wound. You mark a wound on the Green Knight there. Okay, so that was just impact hits.
Right. The steeds.
Okay, hang on.
Strike next.
So we had initiative 10, which was the impact hits.
Yep.
Right.
Settra gets +3 initiative for charging.
Yes.
So that brings up to a total of 6, correct?
6.
Yep.
Yep.
What's the Green Knight's initiative?
Is also 6.
So they strike at the same time then.
Yes, but I think he's talking about his steeds.
Those are initiative 1.
They're initiative 2.
2. Okay.
Okay, so Settra and the Green Knight are going to get to fight at the same time. Okay, well,
I think the Green Knight should roll first.
oh, you think so? Okay.
Even though we're simultaneous.
All right. I will roll first.
Bring
So
him into the
we're
game.
weapon skill 7. So hitting on a 4+, because we're both the same weapon skill. I've got 4 attacks. Okay, so now I have to choose a profile with which to attack.
Settra's toughness is 4. Settra's toughness is 5, and your strength is only 4.
My strength's only 4, so I think then I have to go with deadly blows. Okay, so I'm going to get 4 attacks. Armor Bane 1, multiple wounds 2, strength +2, so it'll be a strength 6. Here we go. 4 ups. Oh no, I've rolled a pile of 1s and a 2. I miss entirely.
The lady is not with you today.
Not with me today. Oh, I forgot to take the blessing, that's why.
No, he's automatically blessed.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he gets a 5 up ward save. That's what it is.
That's true. He does. He is the blessed knight. Anyway. Okay, well, I swing and miss.
Okay.
For honorably letting your opponent strike first, you may now strike back at him.
Okay, he's got 5 attacks, same weapon skill. That would be 2 and a
3
3
hits.
and
3 hits.
Strength 6
6.
versus his toughness of
4.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a 2+ to wound.
And it's also flaming, magical, and
Oh yeah, so no ward save for me.
You still get your ward save. You have a 5 up ward save.
Oh, is it a general ward save?
Yes, you have a 5.
It is a general ward save.
You have a
That's
5 up ward save, and you're ethereal, so you're immune to non-magical attacks.
right. That's what it is. Sorry. Thank you for the reminder. Okay,
so it's AP -3.
It was 2+ to wound.
2+ to
2+.
wound. Yeah, so you got 2 wounds.
And AP -3.
AP -3. Okay, so my 3 up armor save goes to a 6 up. So I'm going to roll 2d6 and roll a pair of 5s. Darn it. Okay.
Should have saved those for the ward.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's the ward save. 2 ward saves. I got 1 more 5. Okay, so I take another wound. The Green Knight goes down to 2 wounds.
What's the Steed's initiative? The Shadow Steed.
The Shadow Steed's initiative is on the other page as I look it up. Initiative 4.
All right. So it'll go last then.
It'll go last for sure.
All right then. The Skeletal Steeds, the 4 of them. Do they have magical attacks?
I don't think so. They just have skeletal hooves. Counts as hand weapon. And initiative 2.
So the Chariot of the Gods rule
It only
not
applies to
apply
the chariot itself,
Yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't apply to the steeds. Okay, so you're not going to do anything to me because I'm ethereal.
And then your ethereal horse gets to poke back at him.
Yeah. All right. Let's do 1 poke from an ethereal horse. Shadow Steed. Okay, I'm on weapon skill 4 against weapon skill 7, so I'm hitting on 5s. And I roll a 1.
Oh, you need to get different dice.
Clearly, I shouldn't be using red and yellow dice.
Against the guy whose entire color scheme is bone?
I just don't have any green dice. Darn it. Okay.
So you've taken a wound from the blade of Patra.
Yes.
You suffer -1 rolls to hit when shooting and in combat for the remainder of the game.
Okay, so I'm -1 to hit you next turn.
Yep.
Yikes.
Gross. Okay, well, here we go.
The sun is blinding you.
Turn
So,
2.
The dwellers below.
Oh, you're going to dwellers below me now as well?
Do assailant spells happen before or after combat?
That is a really good question. So let's have a very quick look at that. But why don't you go ahead and cast it anyway, while I look up the
to
rule.
cast it.
On 2 dice?
Yep.
Give me a 17.
That's a 6.
Nearly.
You need a 7 plus. Well, he's a level 1 wizard.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he gets +1 to the roll. So it does indeed go off. However, I get my fated dispel.
Let's see if the lady's with you today.
Yeah, so I just need to roll 2d6 and chuck a 7 or higher. Go. That's a 5, and that one is a 6, so that is 11. I dispel your dwellers below.
No magic for you, mister.
No magic for you. Okay. Choose and fight combat. Yeah, I think we'll have to figure out when these assailment spells actually happen separately. Let's just roll on to the next round. Okay, so this is my turn.
Yep.
Still round 1. Okay. Well, I have no choice but to just thwack Settra.
Do unbreakable units not even give ground?
We have to do the combat result. Okay, so I've taken 2 wounds, and
Settra charged.
Settra charged. Okay, let's have a look at the combat results table here, because there's a little calculate combat result. Okay, so unsaved wounds inflicted 1 point each. I inflicted none. You inflicted 2. Rank bonus doesn't apply. Standards don't apply. And no high ground, no overkill, no other bonuses. So I lose at -2. Now, I am unbreakable and unstable, right?
Yes.
Green Knight, unbreakable, unstable. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the rules for that, because I think that means the game might be over.
Not necessarily, I think.
Okay, special
It might be.
rules. It might be. So, unbreakable, we know, is you're not required to make a break test. You just automatically give ground. But unstable, if a unit with this special rule loses a round of combat, it loses 1 additional wound for every combat result point by which it lost. The wounds are lost after combat results have been calculated, but before break tests are made. So,
because the Green Knight was so incredibly incompetent, he vanishes in a puff of green smoke.
He does. He takes 2 more wounds and just dies. Okay, well, that was entertaining, at least for us. Poor Green Knight.
Poor Green Knight. He didn't do anything to
No,
Settra.
he didn't. So here,
Perhaps he'll come back in a future pit.
perhaps he might appear if the pit hadn't happened to have a natural terrain.
Yeah.
He might have been able to come back again next turn. You never know.
Unfortunately, it's just sand.
Just sand.
I think Settra might be graceful enough to plant a seed. Maybe if there's enough bloodshed in the pit, that might cause something to grow, which could...
Settra, Lifebringer to the desert.
Well...
I think Settra might be very difficult to beat in the pit. It'll be interesting to see.
He might be. Perhaps that's why the Green Knight shall return.
Who knows? Yeah.
The Green Knight is a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
The hobby horse.
Right, so after all that silliness, I think it's time to talk about creating a new army for this new game. Because a lot of people don't want to, rebase the armies, and a lot of people don't have armies that they want to use for old world. They might not have armies from Warhammer Fantasy. So I think it's a good time to discuss what you recommend for new players or people just starting to get a new army. Tim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so firstly, and probably most obviously from my position, is definitely support your local game store. Games Workshop as well, if you happen to go there, if you like the manager, if you like the people that you play with, do support the game store, turn up for the games, buy stuff, even if it's a pot of paint, whatever. Anyway, enough about that. So the
Actually, I don't think we've mentioned yet about Mountain Gremlin.
Yeah, I don't know. So here's the question: is like we haven't talked about what involvement Tim has versus what involvement Mountain Gremlin has.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, like, I think it's just easier to keep that separate. And we can talk about changing that later, but like for the purposes of the first episode, we can just keep it separate. And I absolutely think it's totally fine to say, you know, support your local game store. Everybody's very much in favor of that, right? But you know,
and also supporting your Games Workshop. If you happen to be playing at a Games Workshop and you like the manager there,
yeah,
obviously there are other places you can buy it. A lot of websites do a discount, but what will happen if you don't support your local Games Workshop? If you like the manager and you like the people that you play with, he will get replaced, or she will get replaced, and you're not quite sure who you're going to get after that.
Yeah.
So it's always better to build rather than destroy. So that's why I say, you know, turn up for games.
Yeah.
Buy a pot of paint.
Yeah.
You know, leave a nice review.
Yeah.
But anyway, when it comes to your first army, best thing to do is obviously buy the rules, buy the appropriate arcane journal on either Ravening Hordes or the other book,
Forces of Fantasy,
and have a look at your basic troop type. So, for example, if that happens to be orcs, that could be a box of orc boys, and then get yourself as many of that troop type as possible. Now, a lot of people are going to start swearing at whatever they're listening to this podcast on and start talking about meta and how you need 50 cannons and everything. But in my book, if you are buying an army, then you need to be collecting that army, learning how to paint that army, and you're not going to learn how to do it by buying 20 cannons and 50 dragons. Of course, it's up to you if you want to buy something. If you want to buy 50 dragons, totally, whatever. But if we're talking about actually collecting an army, getting the bulk of it as your first initial purchase, because that's going to be your project for the next whenever.
Yeah, I think you really have to love the core troops.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need a bunch of them, and you're going to paint a bunch of them, and that's a really good point. Like the first thing you're going to purchase has got to be the thing that you're going to have in the army. Absolutely. And if you don't like that, you might as well collect a different army.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I'm not going back to Empire, is because I don't like the core troops. I love the centerpiece models, like the steam tanks and the general riding a griffin, and I love the artillery and stuff. But I find the core state troop models just not very appealing. They're a bit boring in my book, which is why I've kind of shifted over to Beastmen, because I really like the Beastmen models, especially the Bestigors and Gores and things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, you are going to be painting and assembling about 100 of these guys. Even if you're going to be fancy and say, well, I'm going to do the cavalry version of whichever army, you are going to be painting crew, the riders, which are going to be versions of the infantry. They just happen to have wider legs.
Yep.
Now, you're going to have a lot of options when it comes to putting your infantry together. Obviously, Games Workshop are going to be putting together the box sets that we've already seen, and a number have been teased in the pictures. So, High Elf Spearmen are coming back, Orc Boys from the 6th Ed box that are coming back. There's an F load of other manufacturers who also do some great deals as well. People like Mantic, War Games Atlantic, Warlord Games if you're doing an Empire army. The Perrys have to be mentioned if you're talking about
especially Bretonians.
Yep, absolutely.
And there's a buttload of things available for 3D printing if that floats your boat as well. Like I think one of the reasons that Warhammer, the cynic of me says one of the reasons that Warhammer went through the end times was because of the proliferation of available third-party miniatures. The Warhammer setting is take historical Earth and Middle Earth and let them have a baby, and you kind of get the Warhammer world, like a slightly evil and nasty baby, but there you go. And so elves are elves. Nobody can really say, oh, these are our elves and you can't have them
unless you name them Eldari.
Right. Well, that's really what happened, right? They started making funky names, and then they gave them slightly funkier and stranger armor, and then it became, a lot more, this is our intellectual property. It's nice to see that, Warhammer the Old World is coming back. It means as modelers and as hobbyists, we have a lot more choice in terms of the models that we want to collect. And I think, I honestly think, and it might be going a little off topic here, but I honestly think Games Workshop recognizes this, and they're putting more models into the boxes. That's one of the things they've said is the boxes are going to have more models. They're going to be, I presume, not too much more expensive because of that, in an effort to try and keep people buying their models versus looking at other manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of it to be said for mixing and matching when it comes to creating your army. Because at the end of the day, it is going to be your army. It's not going to belong to Games Workshop. It ceases to belong to Games Workshop or anyone else once you've got it in your hands.
Yep.
And you've started painting it. So, feel free to go out there and experiment and, really see what suits you. Obviously, in the next part of your journey is going to be getting a few games in. There is going to be a period where you are going to be playing with semi-painted models.
If that.
Yeah, yes, the Army of Grey.
Non-tournament compatible models, but that's part of the learning curve, so you're going to learn how your army works and what kind of floats your boat when it comes to defending and battering your opposition. So you might find that after a few games that you might want to go cavalry heavy, or you might want to be archer heavy, or might want to go for a more balanced force. Then it comes to the idea of reward painting. So what a lot of people like to do is they'll say, right, I'll paint 20 infantry, I'll get this unit done, and then I'm going to paint a cannon or a dragon, or
because
something.
That's the thing that they really want to paint.
Absolutely.
So they go through the other stuff because they have to.
Yeah, I mean, once you've done, say 20 faces or 20 shields, it's really good to give yourself a break and,
If you don't paint your meat, you can't have any pudding.
That's it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean...
Yeah, so I think one other thing to think about when you're collecting a new army is who are you going to be playing against? In the area where I was playing, a lot of people were playing both either Warriors of Chaos or Dark Elves at the time, and so collecting either of those meant that you were going to be facing the same as your own army on the battlefield. And, that's okay, but it's also not as fun as when you're facing something different. And so, if you're, going to a local game store and you know who's going to be playing and you find out what armies that they're playing, that can help influence your choice a little bit. Or you don't have to. If you're, like I said, the best thing is if you're in love with the core models, just play that army. But if you're not sure or you're thinking about what army to collect, finding out what other people are playing and then choosing something that's different, that's going to make your local scene more diverse is I thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, that's why everyone should have an orc army. Because
Orcs are the biggest and most diverse.
absolutely, I mean they will fight anyone and each other, and one person's orc army is not going to be exactly the same as somebody else's.
That's right. I'm just running snotlings, only snotlings.
Got a custom homebrewed character here. He's a snotling general.
Scar snot.
I think I've heard of more than one, not that many snotling armies led by a goblin general.
Yeah.
I think you could do that as a legit army in 4th, 5th edition.
Yeah, sadly you have to have goblins in it now because snotlings are not a core choice.
Well, depends who you ask, really. But, I mean, the other thing to mention is, I've kind of gone on about how great infantry and, let's paint 50 boring faces and 20 chainmail. But if you go back to your books, start reading about the history of the army that you're collecting. Any famous battles that they've been at, what their uniforms like, characters. There's normally a funny story involving. I mean, if it's orcs, it could be any of them. Really, let's face it, they're going to be up to something daft and silly. That's, find something that inspires you. And
well, it's actually like you were saying with Death Dealer.
Yeah.
Right? It can be a piece of art that inspires you,
Absolutely.
right? Where you're like, this is what I want to be my general or my centerpiece, or even just a fun conversion I want to try. And that's what keeps you going. Because at the end of the day, collecting an army is a marathon.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to add to it over time. You're going to, have to assemble everything. You're going to have to paint everything. You're going to have to maintain it all. And then, the rules will change slightly and you're like, oh, dang, I really have to have this other unit now. Right? And you're going to have to do it all again.
Yeah,
Model of the
absolutely.
month and all that.
Yeah.
It was I'm fairly certain it's a genuine marketing strategy of Games Workshop to, at least these days, release a new big model and then nerf it 6 months later. So that when they release the next new big model, so people will buy that.
Yeah. Which I think is why it's important to paint what you want to paint, and if you come up with a history or a part of the world that your army happens to be from, it might not matter as much that you don't have the latest guy, because it will be your army. The battles that you win are going to be your victories and not something that you've necessarily paid for to win.
Yeah. And I think, looking at how they've done the release so far and what seems to be coming, I think that's going to be more the case for Old World, where it's aimed at, the joy of rank and flank combat on the table. I personally, I love to name all of my characters, creating a name for them and then, giving them, like Settra, right? Giving them titles after they do a thing. Like I had one character who got the title Demon's Bane, like after he killed a greater demon in combat, stuff like that. Like these things, they, at the end of the day, we're playing with toy soldiers. We're playing war dollies, right? It is designed to capture our imagination so we can have fun with little pieces of plastic and resin on the battlefield. Do what makes you have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last point that I want to make, I think, when you're new to collecting an army, while you like Tim was saying, you want to go out and get those sort of core pieces. It can be helpful to think about things in sort of like 500 point increments, only because that's how most games tend to be structured in those sorts of increments. And so your first 500 points, you can absolutely just buy 500 points of core, because pretty much any army you're going to do after that is you've got most of your your core allotment sorted at that point. But you don't have to. It could be 250 of core and that nice dragon that you have your eye on, your reward paint or whatever it happens to be. But give it a little bit of thought in terms of the points. I know I'm kind of the rules guy a little bit, but it can definitely make it a little easier to get playing with your toys quicker if you've just planned a little bit ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think planning and preparation prevents a piss poor performance. Which,
Say that 5 times fast.
5 times fast.
Oh, very good.
But, it obviously just helps to know what you're doing. If you've got an idea of an army list that you've jotted down, and then if you have a look at some of the figures that are available, it is actually going to make it a lot easier than just going into a shop and randomly buying stuff. Even though it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it helps to cut down on the lead under the box. Sorry, the lead under the bed.
Right. The what is it? The box of shame, right? It's like, here's all of this stuff that I haven't even assembled. The pile of shame, isn't that how they refer to it?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is to, as part of what I was saying about supporting your GameStop, if you're arranging a game and you have a game to look forward to, then you've got a reason to get something painted on for a particular day. So you've got 2,000 point battle coming up. So it's like, right, I need to get the infantry and the cavalry and that cannon done.
Yeah, and it's the same for tournaments and things, right? Like for a lot of tournaments, you need to have a fully painted army, and those you just don't get to play if you don't. So you've got a strict deadline where you need to get all the models done by that time. It's a great motivator.
Yeah, I think that tournaments, whether they are competitive tournaments or just a play day of organized play, they're really good for helping motivate you to get stuff done, because virtually everyone I've met in this hobby, there's one or two very notable exceptions, but virtually everyone I've met has some level of pile of shame, has some level of hobby ADHD, where they jump from either from system to system, or they play Warhammer one weekend and the next weekend they're off doing some other different hobby. The tournament is kind of the forcing function. It's like, they say I must have it all painted. Dang, I gotta actually sit down and paint. And you still have the joy when you paint. Like, I really enjoy painting, but sometimes I just need that motivation to say it's got to be done now, so I got to sit down and make the time for it.
All right, men, rank up. We'll charge them in the flanks.
All right, I think we can end things off here with just a couple of notes from the Rank and Flank Discord server.
Oh yeah, if you want to join that, you can go to the rankandflank.com website, and there's just a link right there from Discord. You can come join us.
We were requested to talk about a couple of fun magic items by one of the members of the Discord.
Okay, so magic items overall, I think have been toned down a little bit in terms of what they can do and how much points they cost. I think one that's been made more accessible and a bit more fun is the Wizarding Hat. It is 45 points down from 100. It turns the character into a level 1 wizard and makes them stupid. The stupidity part is that there's like voices whispering to you now that you've got this magical hat on your head.
The hat's just really annoying.
Yeah, that's just really... I kind of think of it like, like a really sarcastic version of the Sorting Hat. It's like, oh, you really want to cast that spell? Jeez. And then you're arguing with the hat instead of casting the spell. And another fun one that's made its way back into the game is the Flying Carpet. This one costs 40 points. It gives you the Fly 8 special rule, which means you can move 8 inches while you're flying. I think what else does it? Oh, it's only it can only be taken by infantry characters, so
And it prevents you from joining units.
it prevents you from joining units. Yeah, so basically you're flying around. I've seen flying carpets done a bunch of different ways. Some people have modeled it as like magic wings or whatever it happens to be. If you want to have an infantry model in your army that can fly, you can. So I think those are two of the more fun ones that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Is the terrifying Mask of E still in the game?
No.
Oh, no.
It is not. However, I think there is a similar magic item. If I remember correctly, the terrifying Mask of E, just gave you, I think it gave you terror.
It just gave you terror, yes.
Yeah, there is a magic item that grants terror, and sadly it does not have quite so cool a name. Let me see if I can dig it out while you bring up the next question.
All right. The next question we have is, what is objectively the best army in the game, and why is it dwarves?
I think we've already determined that objectively the best army in the game is orcs, according to Tim. Yeah. So, good luck with that, Miles, is all I have to say.
I think it is. I think the best army in the game is probably your dudes.
Yeah.
So if you're collecting an army, that is probably the best army. Outside of orcs, of course. Pretty much, because in any fantasy movie or story, you will see hordes of orcs and lots of normal people terrified of these hordes of orcs.
It's true.
Right? Therefore, orcs are the best army. If you happen to be an evil overlord or a wizard of some description, your go-to mercenaries are going to be orcs. I mean, you might have Chaos Warriors or Dread Warrior equivalents for your personal guard, but...
Orcs are free, they just want to fight.
Exactly.
But, if you need to defeat some orcs, it's usually those pesky wood elves that you end up calling upon.
Or other orcs.
Or other orcs, yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, I'm mistaken. There is no magic item that grants terror now that I can see. There are some in the
Arcane Generals?
army special. Some of the particular armies have
a horde of orcs cause terror.
I think that the mask was so terrifying it scared the writers out of putting it back in the game.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, I've forgotten about that. I did like the name of that so much.
Another interesting magic item thing I've just remembered is that potions can now be taken multiple times.
Yeah, there are. In the rulebook, they referred to the rulebook magic items as the common magic items, but that still meant that all that meant was that each army had access to them. Now they have extremely common magic items, and the extremely common ones are ones where you can take multiples of them. You can take multiples of them even on the same character, never mind in the same army. I think that's how it works. Bear in mind, I've only had a few days at the rules. But yes, the potions all can be taken. There's a few scrolls and stuff like that can be taken. And even I think some of the weapons are so you could have multiple, I think you can have multiple magical weapons now as well. So it's a little different. But like I said, the overall power level of those, I'm not sure you would necessarily want to do that, but you can if you choose to.
Yeah. Another question from the Discord is that since Horde Army models are now so much cheaper, like 3 or 4 points, compared to their equivalents in other armies. For example, Dark Elf Infantry is about 12 points per model with heavy armors and shields. Do you think that Horde armies will be particularly powerful in this game compared to in previous editions?
Oh, that is a good question.
Bearing in mind we've only had a few days of the rules.
Yeah, my first thought is that there's definitely still a strong place for Horde armies. I think that the rules around combat are that that when you step forward, you can't fight in the phase that you step forward, which means if if you're horde armies typically tend to have low initiative, and not all of them, Skaven are the exception. But that means that when your horde is attacked on a higher initiative, most likely the dudes are not going to get to fight back. So I think, having that staying power to hold up a unit for a long period of time is still going to be very, very valuable. And maybe that's a tactic we should probably talk about at some point is how that's going to work. I don't see anything in the rules in first read that suggest that the horde army is going to suffer in any way. Like I think the tactics of so having played Skaven a bunch, and having played against other horde armies and with both elite armies and hordes, I can't think of anything that I saw where I thought, oh, well, that kind of just makes horde armies useless or anything like that. I think they're going to still be as viable as they were before.
Might be quite funny to see a big bus of Skaven then immediately turn into just 2 ranks as it spreads across half the table.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know how big units are going to be. That's something I think will be interesting to see how that unfolds over the course of playing our first few games.
Any thoughts, Tad?
Yeah, all I always can think of when you mention the line of Skaven is, I don't know if anyone's aware that there was a tournament that supposedly took place ages ago that involved a scout army for 40k unable to deploy because somebody deployed their Kroot all along the table. And it turned out that it was totally game legal. And both players were effectively gaming the game rather than actually playing it.
Yeah.
But the spread of Kroot actually won.
Yeah.
Rules as written. The only evidence we have is an anecdote and a picture of somebody not looking happy with a scout army and someone looking very smug with the Kroot.
Yep, I remember that, and I've seen a similar thing for Age of Sigmar as well.
Right.
And in fact, that kind of thing is what turned me off those games. I want a big block of dudes. I want my army to look like an army. I want it to feel like this is a battle that could actually happen, not this is somebody metagaming in order to come away with a tournament victory. I think there was one other question that was in here, which was kind of buried a little in there from Mark, which was it'd be a good idea of what you're all into regarding the game. So, like, what is it that kind of floats our boat about Warhammer? We talked a little bit about it, but I think this would be pretty good parting thought. What do you think?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah. So I'll start. I think I really just kind of alluded to it, and in fact, the name of the podcast really kind of captures it all. For me, it's about having the combination of the rank and file, rank and flank sort of troops on the battlefield in blocks, combined with the tactics that you need to really work with them. I'm very excited about the new maneuvers that I'm going to be able to do. To me, the funnest phase is the movement phase. Like, it sets everything else up. I'm very excited to kind of get my old models out, get my wood elves on the table and see how they perform in under this new system.
I think that what's most exciting to me about this is just a return to a world that I really enjoy. I love the world of Warhammer Fantasy. It's been a big part of my life for a very long time. And I'm really excited to go back and just see it being, talked about more. With the Total War games and things, that has been kind of starting to happen for the last couple of years. And people have been discussing the old world, like the actual world itself. And that's been making me really happy. I'm really excited to see more people enjoying this really good setting. and the excellent models that come along with it, which hold a lot of nostalgia value for me as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Warhammer Fantasy Battle has kind of had a wilderness period where it's existed outside of its original existence, kind of like Doctor Who did in the 90s, where you could do the role playing game, which is still going strong. You could do Total War, which a lot of people have actually found out about the old world through.
Total War is the entire reason Chaos Dwarves are still supported.
Absolutely.
And I think the reason why Tree Men are now wizards, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah. But I think they've done some really interesting things with Cathay and some of the other countries that you don't really see much in the Warhammer game since, I think, the late 80s, when they last had a model range out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what people do with it and what direction people take with it. I'm looking forward to looking less like a head case talking about the vague parts of Warhammer that still exist, like Carroburg Crimson,
Right.
as the paint, which is a very particular reference to a very particular unit of Empire troops.
It's the Carroburg Great Swords, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The, very good regiment.
I love that you both know that.
They're in Total War.
Ah.
I think it's mainly the paint range that is still available from Games Workshop that actually has any reference to those worlds.
Stirland mud
Yep.
and that kind of thing.
Nuln oil,
Oh, of course.
No.
right? Everybody swears by it, but nobody knows where Nuln is anymore.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. I think is that all the questions? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll wrap it up.
Might have more next time.
Yeah.
To known and beyond.
Thank you all for listening. This has been the Rank and Blank podcast. We will see you in the next one.